21st every year, the world pauses to observe the International Day of Peace. And the Albert Schweitzer Institute at Quinnipiac University makes it a priority. So we are pleased to welcome Executive Director Sean Duffy to Studio 61. Good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning. It's a pleasure.
Now talk about how International Day of Peace was started back in 1981 and what the goal was.
Well, the goal has really been around trying to think about how we cultivate a culture of peace in the international system. It was started by the United Nations, and they defined a culture of peace as a set of values, attitudes, ways of being, and modes of life, really, that reject violence and try to solve problems through negotiation and addressing root causes of violence. Mm-hmm. So I think what it does, there's events and different kinds of recognitions around the world, probably more so outside the U.S. than inside the U.S., where mm-hmm. UN kind of observances are much more celebrated. But I think it gives us an opportunity to sort of pause from the things that are really distracting us these days about, what's happening in the world, what's happening in our own country. And think about how can we reach out to one another? How can we be present in our communities? How can we think about how we cultivate those values, attitudes, modes of being, and ways of life that actually lead to a more peaceful society?
Right. I think because of current conflicts, a lot of people are looking for that. They're hoping for it. So how can people on an everyday basis, or especially on this day, promote that and just take some time?
I think it starts from attitude and perspective. So much of our daily news stream is focusing on the negative, but if we can start by thinking about the positive. Another thing that we are really, I think, struggling with as a society is the uncertainty. The uncertainty that comes from what's happening in the economy, what's happening with climate, what's happening in our political sphere, the conflicts around the world. We can react with anger, with tension, or we can take a deep breath and think, okay, well, what does this actually mean, this uncertainty? How can we find a path through it? What are the possibilities that open up because things are in flux? Mm-hmm. So I think it's an opportunity to sort of do a reset on our mental state, and then reach out to one another, interact with people, think about how we can celebrate our commonalities. And I think that's, doing activities that do that are ways that we can take advantage of this International Day.
Now, as a mom, I always think about how we can incorporate our kids into what we're dealing with, into our lessons. And what would you suggest for parents? What sort of conversations should we be having with our kids?
Ask the kids what they find exciting and new about their lives. I'm sure parents do that anyway, but take the time to celebrate. Take the time to let go of your anxieties and think about what it is that we can do together. Encourage the kids to get out and just be outside.
Right.
Do something with them.
We hear it a lot.
Outside.
Touch the grass, climb trees, things like that.
Exactly.
Get back to nature.
Reach out to friends they haven't seen for a while and just enjoy a day outside together. That kind of thing. I think. I've trained as a political scientist, and so my disciplinary sort of biases force me to think about war and conflict and negotiations and treaties, all sorts of stuff that we don't feel a very close connection with. But if we think about what's happening in our own neighborhoods, and how can we reach out to neighbors, or how can we reach out to people in our communities and think, oh, let's do something this weekend,
right.
That sort of thing. Let's celebrate.
Just taking an afternoon to make cookies and bring them to some neighbors. Things like that. If people are looking for more inspiration, you have a podcast that folks can check out, right?
Exactly, yes. It's a new podcast where we look at this question of what is peace and how can we do peace? How can we actually promote peace? We have 5 episodes with a bonus episode at the end that's a conversation. People can access it if they're interested at quinnipiacpodcasts.com/. It's called what is it called? Disrupting the Divide. Disrupting that divide that we have in our lives, in our society, in our culture. Thinking about how we can bridge that a little bit.
I'm sure that's a great resource. And we all could use some peace these days, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
In all aspects of our life. Sean, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate your time and also sharing some inspiration.